know why he would have said there was a pro rider coming through? Somebody said that?
To you?
To me, while I was on the trail.
Okay. Was it Paul?
He's messing with me. He's like, he's gonna think the pro's right next to him. Yeah. I don't know. So I was confused. I didn't know that they came later.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually went out for a second lap, you know.
Yeah. Maybe the guy was just warming up. I don't know. But.
Mark Deering here from the Adventure Channel. We just got back from the Iceman Cometh Challenge 2022. We had a pretty interesting year, and when we got back, we had this idea. I wanted to get these guys together and talk about their experience with it. So we've got some first-timers, we got some vets. We're going to ask them each some questions and just kind of hear what they had thought. So I'm going to go around and introduce. So when I introduce you, go ahead and say like how many times you've done it, and maybe even say, if you want to, your time this year and different things like that. So we got Paul Warchek.
Yep, so I've been doing Iceman since 2017. My time this year was 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 20 seconds.
Nice, nice. We got Aaron Goodrich. By the way, have done it since 2017, so you're not a rookie. We got a rookie.
That's right, first timer.
All right, so tell us about your time and introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, just joined the Mark Deering team, so excited about that. And this was actually not just my first Iceman, but first race ever on mountain bikes. And so it's really fun to be a part of it. I was hoping to go under 2.5, but ended up doing 2 hours and 41 minutes. I'll tell more about that later, but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Perfect. Now we've got the fastest man in Zealand here. Self-proclaimed, I will say.
We'll run with that, yeah.
So Mike Aldrich, we met just this past weekend in person.
Yeah.
We met a few times online there, and you were talking about the videos. Came up and talked to me up at Iceman and turned into talking a bunch, so it ended up being cool. So tell us your time this year, and it was his first time. So.
Yep. First time Iceman. Time was 2 hours and 16 minutes. And I've only been mountain biking for about 2.5 years. Outside of 25 years ago, I was into it like everybody else, kind of when they're a teenager. But you know, felt like I just needed to pick it up again and start the sport all over.
Sure. We're going to touch a little bit about that. So. Then we got Pat Ellis. I've known him for years. That's a whole nother fun story maybe we'll get into. But first timer as well.
Yes.
Not a first time to biking. This guy is crazy on the tricks on the BMX and on the mountain bike downhill stuff. He helps build some of the Winalda rebuild. He was part of helping with some of that. But first time Icemaner, first time race, right?
Yes. Yep. First race, first Iceman, and kind of hooked now. I want to do it more.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. So let's jump right into it, guys. Like I say, I kind of wanted to do this and actually find out different perspectives, because we all had different perspectives. Oh, by the way, I've done it about 10 years-ish, maybe, and 2 hours, 27 minutes, I think. It took me even a while to look because I was a little disgusted with how the day went, but it's a whole other story we'll probably get into. And I've been hooked. It was my first race ever, just like you, and it's, you're going to be doing the same thing 12 years from now. It's amazing. It's an addiction. It's awesome. So, Iceman, a little bit about it. If you're watching this video, you already know, but it's 5,500 racers. It's the biggest point-to-point race in the United States, and it's up in Traverse City. It's the festival too. I think that's a big draw for a lot of people, is the festival afterwards. It's just the energy, even driving up with the cars, passing other cars with bikes on the back.
Yeah.
It's electric. So let's jump right in, and I guess we'll go from this direction over for this first question. Let's see. I wanted to find out, when did you find out about Iceman, and what was your perspective of it before you got there?
I first found out about Iceman probably back in 2010-ish.
Okay.
And that was working in a shop, not a mountain biker at the time, and never thought I would be participating in such a thing. And yeah, now here we are, first one down and ready to participate in more.
Sure. So, yeah, 2010 is about when I met you at the bike shop. So, and a couple of your regulars, your sponsored guys, were the ones that kind of took me under their wing. And Todd, the owner of the shop, and so he was working on our bikes, and you're watching us like, why are those guys doing that? And
Yeah.
here you are. So, how about you, Mike?
I've heard about Iceman since probably the late '90s when I was a little bit into mountain biking when I was in college. But that was always one of those things where I just thought that's what the super elite athletes do. I'm not going to do anything like that ever, you know. And then I got back in the sport a couple years ago, and I knew about it, and with YouTube, started looking into it again, made it a goal, and just decided to make it happen this year.
Cool. Aaron?
Yeah, similar to him, I was a mountain biker in high school and heard about it, and people talked about how fun it is and everything. But this summer, as I was hanging out with the Mark Deering team, everyone was talking about it, and I was like, I want that to be my first race. So I signed up probably last spring. So I was signed up for a while, and yeah, super excited.
Sure.
And it was a great experience.
So my first Iceman was in 2017, and I heard about it through my coworker Miguel, and he was actually the one that kind of got me into mountain biking. So do you care if I share a quick story?
Go for it. That's
So
what this is for.
in 2015, I had a job working in a warehouse, and in the one of my coworkers, Miguel, I used to run a lot, and he used to kind of talk about running, and he used to do Ironmans. And one day he asked me, like, "Hey, Paulie, do you ever ride the mountain bike trails by your house?" I was like, "What mountain bike trails?" And he's like, "Paul, you live in mountain biking heaven." And
You do.
as a quick reference, I live about a quarter mile from the game area and about half a mile from a ski hill. So it's pretty much mountain biking mecca for West Michigan. But I had never ridden a mountain bike. I had never ridden any mountain bike trails. And in 2015 was when I first got started mountain biking. And then 17, I decided to sign up for my first race. So.
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny that you did not know what you lived next to.
Yeah, for sure.
I keep trying to get my wife to move over there. She won't let us. I want to move over right where you're at. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about the training, guys. So I can maybe start and tell you just to give an idea. When I started mine, I'll give you the short version too of me finding out about it. We were up in Traverse City, and I was with the siblings. We were doing a sibling wine tour, and there was bikes everywhere on every single car. And I'm like, what is going on? I was just about a year into hanging out at the shop and breaking my bike a lot, and you guys fixing it. And then it was like, what is going on in Traverse City? So I asked this guy, and he goes, Iceman Cometh. You've never heard of him? I'm like, no. So he told me all about it. And I might have had a beer or two in me, and I walked over back to the table and told my siblings, I'm like, I'm doing this next year. I was committed from that minute and said, I'm doing this next year. And sure enough, that whole next year did what I thought was training. I still didn't even know about the big trails in Cannonsburg and all those. I still was riding Riley and Bass River. Back when I thought Bass River had a couple hills, believe it or not. And so Bass River is an easy trail over by us. And
No wood chip hill.
no wood chip hill. And I'll never forget that I did a 30-mile ride like a week and a half or so before my first race. And it was Lakeshore Drive, just the pavement.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought I was set. I'm like, I got this. I got this. So yeah, that's a little bit about my perception of Iceman before I got into it. So let's see, does that cover that one pretty good? Everybody answer on that?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So training. So I think everybody I think everybody was already riding and hitting group rides, and I think you were riding a bunch in Zealand.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know, I'm teasing you. And What did you do to train? And looking back, was it enough? Or I guess I'll start with you, Pat.
I guess the term training is kind of a new one for me as well. I just started riding with my good friend Ryan Davis, and just trying to keep up pace with him at Cannonsburg, Merrill, Wallfield, every trail, and he was kind of the one that actually convinced me to enter.
Okay.
So I figured if I can keep up with him, I might do okay.
Yeah.
And so that was my training.
Okay.
He set the pace and I followed.
That's good. That's good. And I think that's what's going to be kind of cool. I think we'll see different. I've done a little bit of all of it where I got a coach and I went all in, and then I've done the laid back version. So I think be kind of cool to hear the different perspectives, because really that's what's nice about Iceman is you can take it super serious, or you can show up and have a good time and just do a PR, or not even a PR, and just have fun. So I'll skip me. How was your training? Did you train? And
Yeah, training for me didn't kick in until about August. For one, I had another race I'd already signed up for, the Lord of the Springs race. So you pretty much got to be dialed in by the end of August, going to September. So I just kept that rhythm going from that race to training, and just riding as much as I could and trying to get comfortable riding 30 to 50 miles at a shot trail.
Okay. Are we talking heart rate monitor, the whole 9 yards, following a plan, or riding, not some of that stuff?
Yeah, I didn't have a set plan or a coach or anything like that, but I did have the heart rate monitor, and
Okay.
just being aware of my body and with everything that I was doing with it, because I knew the goal was to actually do as best I could at Iceman. So
How many days a week are we talking?
about 3 days a week.
Okay.
With kids and work, it's hard to
Sure.
be an adult and play on your bike. So
Sure. Yep.
yeah.
Sure. Eric?
Yeah, my training was more laid back. I actually, the beginning of the summer, I was in pretty good shape with just coming to Thursday night rides. And then whenever I could, I would do road riding on Kent Trails. I live right by Kent Trails, and I just go down there. And then we had a rental come vacant, and I've just been super busy this fall. So I missed out on a lot of rides. I've done a lot of road riding and thought, I'll be good. 20 miles here and there, but it was totally different. And I will definitely train different next time, for sure.
I think that's like, and maybe we all share that thought. Like, I think that's what's cool about any racing, not just Iceman, but it leaves you hungry, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you finish and you're like, man, dang it, this, and this, and this, and maybe I should,
Yeah.
I think that's fun of it. What about you, Paul?
So I'm a little more on the looser end of training as well. I'm gonna put training in quotes here. But I started kind of my training I would really say early summer training for lumberjack, trying to make sure I finished. And then from there, I kind of kept the ball rolling, and then really I kind of ramped up the last probably month and a half prior to Iceman, starting in about September, and just doing at least one kind of 40 to 50 mile training ride a week, and then having, additional base miles, and then, some interval, he'll work out type days here and there. But I never really had, today I'm going to go out and do an hour and 30-minute ride with, 5 intervals of 2 minutes, or
Sure.
nothing like that. But, I tried making sure at least once a week I was doing at least one kind of bigger training ride,
Sure.
40, 50 miles. So I think end of September, early October, I did the Iceman out and back, so that's 40-something miles, doing that, doing a couple of, rides here and there like that, just getting used to it, so.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll speak on that a little bit. Like, I've done a lot of the different approaches where I was using a heart rate monitor, I was doing the intervals, I had a recovery day ride, I had this, all those other things. And, at the end of the day, we're amateur, mountain bikers, and I had fun doing that, and it showed some value, it showed some value and whatnot. But then I've done to where I'm like, let's just go up there and just ride. Like, this past year, I barely wore a heart rate monitor all year long. And that's one of the things I think I'm going to get back to, though, because I couldn't tell if I was redlining or just fatigue or what I was, in the race. 'Cause I didn't wear it in the race either. So I'm like, dang it, some of my old habits, I got to bring those back out, but there is a balance, right? Like let's not take this so serious, right? We're not having fun. Let's make sure that we're enjoying this. We're not getting paychecks for this, all those types of things.
Maybe
so,
someday.
Maybe, yeah. For Paul, you're still young. Paul's still young. But let's talk about a few other fun things like about Iceman. Everybody probably stayed somewhere different and probably had different logistic things that came up that maybe you would do the same or do over again. Pat, let's start with you. Well, let's start with Paul. Let's go this way this time.
All right. So I stay in a hotel with a couple friends, one of them being Miguel. It's kind of been ritual for the last, actually since the first Iceman. I've always stayed with him and a couple other friends. So, it's really just been kind of like, I want to say like a family gathering, but it's, like kind of like a family gathering. You go up to Iceman, stay together, hang out together, ride, and then, talk about stuff later after how things went, Miguel kind of jokes around. He's like, you got relax a little bit. I like to take things a little too seriously sometimes. So
he calms you down.
Calms me down a little
There
bit.
you go. There you go. So what sounds after you've been doing that with him for a few years, you got that dialed, where, because there's a little bit the morning of, there's nerves or butterflies or trying to figure out, am I going to make it to Kalkaska in time? Am I going to this and that? So you've got that kind of dialed from your setup so far.
So for the most part, I feel comfortable, getting to the race. The only thing I would say is, I guess really afterwards, once I got done racing, and by the time, I got changed and ate and, kind of, recover a little bit. And then, let's go back to grab my car and come back. And it's like trying to make sure, I get to watch the pros come up the hill.
Sure.
And the hill is,
Wood chip.
Wood chip, thank you. I blanked out for a minute.
Yeah.
We just talking about it, but.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I mean, that we could talk about that, as we go too, but that's the other fun thing. I shouldn't say stress or pressure, but we have all these things that we got to try to line up that day. And then after the race, you're like relaxing, it's done. Hopefully you're semi-happy with how you did. And then it's like, how do I get to where we watch the pros? Where's my buddies? Where's this? There's a lot going on that weekend. I mean, it's a busy weekend. So Aaron, how did yours, what worked well? What would you change?
Yeah. Ended up working really well. My aunt and uncle have an amazing cabin right on the Boardman River off of Broomhead.
Okay.
So it's like, I didn't know how close it was, but I was like, hey, can we stay there? And when I looked at the map, I was like, oh my goodness, it's like right here, So, and they have this cabin that has an amazing fireplace. So my wife went up, it was like a relaxing evening. And so the night before was great. The morning of, I put into the GPS getting to Kalkaska, and it took us, because there was a lot of traffic the one way, it took us off-roading, and we had our minivan. So that was a little interesting with all the rain and mud.
Sure.
There was a few times my wife was like, we're not going to make it up that hill. And I was like, boy, I hope we do. I'm supposed to be to a race, And so I had to gun it a few times, but we made it. And so then I went there, got my packet, got back, got my bike all set, and I literally got to the front at wave 42 when they were calling it up. Like, wow. I was there right at the line. So that was a little stressful. I wouldn't do that again. I would definitely not do that again. My friend was there and he's like, dude, come on, let's go. So, but I made it. So
I've had one of those experiences too where, I look back, I'm like, that was kind of nice because you weren't sitting there like, you didn't have time to worry.
No.
You went right to the
none.
I've done that at Barrie before, and that is stressful.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I had a similar situation with that, getting there and everything. But leading up to it, I just basically booked a site at a campground.
okay.
I'm like, I'm a pretty tough camper, right? I got a nice canvas tent. I can throw a heater in there if I want to. Packed it all up. I knew it was going to rain. My tent's fine. I pulled into Kalkaska Friday night, and the weather was okay. Until the rain let loose.
4 o'clock.
But no, when I got to the campground, I said, I'm here for a site, but I'm eyeing out these cabins over here. Do you have one of those available? And the guy was like, let me check. So he called the owner, and they had one of the cabins was
Nice.
available. So I was like, I think I'll take that for the night with the rain that's coming.
That worked out good.
Smart.
It did work out good because obviously that wasn't a all
Sure.
night rain. But
Yeah.
I woke up in the morning, just went to the race, and I was solo, so I didn't have to worry about
Sure.
spectators coming with me and all
Yeah.
that. So, but yeah, the stress of the line getting into the parking at Kalkaska. I mean, I was right down to the.
Standstill parking there.
I had about 12 minutes to
Wow.
do everything. I'm not the only one. It sounds like So,
No.
but that was kind of cool because, like you said, like you didn't have time to think about it or just.
Mhm. Your mind was in other things.
I was just go, and all of a sudden, we're taking off. So,
Yep. So, yeah, so I stayed. This would be our second or third year that we've stayed at Timber Ridge in the campground. And years previous, we've done the Park Shore Hotel. We've done the Beechwood Inn. We've got 6 or 8 buddies and rented an Airbnb. We've done a little bit of all that. But I think I am convinced that, and I'll tell you why it was a little disturbing, but I think I'm convinced that I like the camping part, like right at Timber Ridge. It's hard to get in there, but it took us a while to get in there. But now that we're in there, it's so nice. You finish, you bike a couple hundred yards, get in the hot shower, not have to wait because those showers that the Iceman provides is nice. I don't know if anybody ever used them.
Nope.
They do work good. It's a big semi-trailer, and you take a bunch of dry clothes, and it works good. But you have to stand in line and freeze because we were lucky this year. First timers, we were lucky this year with temperatures. It's not always like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always like that. So, anyways, I camped on site, and I think we're gonna try keep doing that year in, year out because we put that big event on after the cookout and everything that works out really well. But the downside was, you're in a camper, which you would have noticed if you were in your tent. If you would have stayed in the tent, that rain. So from 9 o'clock at night, trying to go to bed early or whatever it was, and just sitting there listening to that pounding rain all night long, I was just getting bad. It was battling my mind. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I said, I like, no problem. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so I had the conversation with the wife, and I was texting buddies, and you probably saw the team one go through, and I was waiting for I was waiting for other people to say me neither, but nobody jumped on that train. So I'm like, okay, we're racing, and but yeah, that's so staying at Timber Ridge. That's pretty good too. What was your experience? Is there anything you would do different or that you liked?
Being my first time, kind of didn't know what to expect, so the strategy was to just be early. My wife and I came up the night before, Friday, and went to the expo, picked up the packet. We booked an Airbnb relatively close to downtown, and race day, I was in wave 47, so my wave didn't start until 11:18, so I had quite a bit of time. We left the Airbnb with plenty of time to spare, and the traffic definitely was a little nerve-wracking. There were a couple times I thought might have to get out of the vehicle and ride to the start line. But when we got parked, I had plenty of time to stand there and watch several waves before me take off, get some stretching in, and that kind of eased all the nerves watching people before me take off.
Yeah.
I will say too, for the first timers, that was a really good start experience. So don't get used to that. It can get sleety, rain. You can be where you're like, you have to almost wear a ton of clothes to stay warm, and then you're deciding what to shed before you take off. I mean, I was in short sleeves and short. I was in summer clothes, getting ready. So that's not always the case. Yeah. But so let's jump right into talking about the race itself. I guess we can go back this way, Pat. What was some of your favorite memories of the race itself?
Favorite and least favorite at the same time, passing people.
Okay.
It kind of felt good, to pass people, but at the same time, when things would get really backed up around the narrow techie single track, and even on some of the downhills, people were braking a lot, and it was a little frustrating. But yeah, that was one of my favorite and least favorite things.
Sure. Pat's humble, so he's not gonna tell you this, but he's pretty fast and pretty good. And the fact that you started in the back, because when you start, you have to start in the back wave, so to earn your wave.
Yeah.
So I could imagine everybody here that doing the first time stuff, you guys had to have to earn your stripes, to get into the earlier waves. But you guys had a lot of passing to do. Didn't you?
Yeah, and finished with a time of 2 hours 25 minutes, which was I didn't know if I was going to be able to finish. So the goal of finishing was met.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
What's some of your memories of the race itself?
Oh, the race itself was awesome. I know the first 5 miles of any ride or race I do physically, I know how my body's doing it. And if I can get through that first 5 miles, get the heart rate up, get the lactic acid, get comfortable, I'm set. But if I can just get through that and then move on mentally, I hit that 5 mile window and I just felt great. Because that's kind of the easiest part of the trail is like this kind of flat stuff, and settling in about 10 miles, feeling good, passing people. Then you come to the single track where you get held up a little bit, where you should be going fast. It's like, well, what's going on here? But, well, maybe I'm just going to conserve energy for a little bit here and attack when I need to. And you just start to figure out the passing technique, without being a jerk. And
Right.
But then it's looming over your head. What are these hills they talk about? So it's like, do I conserve a little bit now? It's about mile 17, but it's been okay. And
Sure.
finally, you start getting into it. It's like, okay, that was a hill.
That's what they meant.
I don't know what hill that was, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
Then you finally hit the big ones, and it's like, okay, now we're getting tired.
Good sign. A good sign is when there's a bunch of people cheering and you hear drums. That's when the big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember coming around this one turn, and all of a sudden it was like this hill was looking at me, and I was like, "What's that?"
Canitas, I bet.
I think that was the one. I was like, that was like the first big one. I was like, oh, okay, there we go.
This year, when we came up to Anita's, I didn't look super hard at what was in this year's course and not. And they've taken Anita's out. I think the year before Anita's was out. And so this year, speaking of Anita's, I head buried down, just kind of in race mode. And I was actually probably having my mental little thing that I was having, that. And all of a sudden I went, oh, it's in this year. And once when you're 2K away or a mile away, you can hear people screaming and yelling. You're like, okay, here comes a hill. But so anyways, sorry.
Yeah, no. The hype at the beginning was really fun, and I didn't know what to expect as far as passing. So I was like, I'm gonna get in front of everyone in my wave so that I can just keep going, So I was averaging like 14 and a half, 15 miles an hour out of the chutes. I was just flying. And I was actually pleasantly surprised at how much two-track there was to pass people. There were some spots that got really congested and even stopped at one point, which was super frustrating. But for the most part, you could go around, and so I like that. There were people that it just felt almost like family. There was like guys like, "What are you hoping for?" And I was saying what I was hoping for, and he's like, "All right, well, I'll keep you on pace." And it was just kind of fun that like I don't even know these people at all, and we're riding. And then at the end, I'll explain this later, but I was just crashing like crazy. And one guy was like, "Hey, I got electrolyte stuff. Here you go." Gave it to me. I'm eating while I'm going, and it's just cool to be a part of that. And I felt really good for the first 3/4 of it, but it was just the last little bit that I didn't plan very well for as far as food. So
Sure. And what you're describing, that just only grows. Like it's like if you run into anybody and you start talking about Iceman or whatever, and there's so many of people that have done it, and there's so many people that use that as like their Super Bowl at the end of the year. It's like a big family. I think before we went up this year, I said, going to ride with 5,500 of my family and buddies, and
Nice.
it's true. It's hard to describe, but go ahead, Paul.
So for me, my favorite moment was right near the end of the race. So I had this one gentleman I was catching up to a little bit, and we were coming around the final corner, and he was maybe only a couple feet in front of me. And coming out of that final corner, I was like, I'm making a mission to catch him. I gave it a sprint. He realized, I was coming after him, and he started sprinting as well. And we finished pretty much neck and neck. I mean, he just got me by just a hair. But I mean, I've done that before, and it's just so fun. You're tired, but it's like, all right, I'm gonna give it one last go, see if I can get one more person, to pass, and just, I enjoy it. It's fun, like pushing yourself, but it's also fun. Okay, you see a goal, a very tangible goal. It's like, I'm gonna try it, and then just go for it and see what you get.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's there's so many. That's another cool thing about how many racers there are. I mean, from where you were at, you had so many to pass, and it got a little frustrating. That'll get better as you get better waves, but that's what's cool about the Iceman race besides other races too, is that there's always 10 ahead and always 10 behind.
Yes.
So depending on how you're feeling, I like to chase carrots, I like to chase the rabbit, so I'm like, who's, so that's what's cool, is you're always in traffic, I think. In the earlier waves, the single track does not bog down. In the earlier waves, there's not stopped. We didn't stop at all. We didn't have any stop moments. Like maybe 8 on or 8 forward. I don't think there's that much congestion where there's not people flying through the single track. So, but yeah, that what you're describing, and then as you were saying it, and you're talking about the sprint, I was going to joke with you guys being first timers. Here's a little pro tip for you: save a little for where the crowds are. You're coming up the wood chip, and you're like, oh, wood chip's coming. Dang it, I'm kind of tired. All right, well, I'm going to save a little. rest, and then come around the corner.
Look all cool.
Yeah. Man, you were flying just for that 10 seconds.
Just there.
Oh, I've
like
done
it.
that a couple times, I will admit. So, let's see, what else we got? Let's see. So then, another really cool thing about this race, hopefully you guys all got a chance to go watch the pros, but this is one of the few races that we were talking with some people that Cole Patton, who does, he won last year, came in 4th or 5th, whatever, this year, 6th, and we interviewed him and his girlfriend, and they were talking about how this race has such a cool vibe to it, to where all the amateurs get to do the course and have fun, and then that same day, a couple hours later, the pros go. So were you guys? I mean, you probably knew that before you got there, but I guess talk on that a little bit. I mean, that's pretty cool, I think. So, did you like that part of it?
Yeah. I mean, kind of watched some YouTube videos of the pro category before even entering the race, and that's kind of what I thought the whole race was going to be.
Sure.
A lot of really fast looking XC guys, and the pros were it's insane how much faster they are. Just seeing them come through the finish line, just that pace, and
That they were doing for the whole
awesome.
time.
Yeah. And just hearing the music go up, and the announcer kind of stoking people up for each rider as they came through, that was really cool.
Yeah.
It was nice to be able to finish the race with enough time to grab a beer or two,
Or three.
and some food, and converse, meet up with friends, and then walk up to the gate and watch the pros fly through.
That's a great point. There is, they obviously have done that on purpose, but the time in between is good. Like you have literally enough time to shower, eat, cheer on your other friends that started in later waves or however that worked, and still walk over to the hot spots and watch probably first timers. Going up, the ones that are getting helped pushed up the hill and all that. That's so cool to watch. Like that, I give those guys kudos and but then then you're sitting there and all of a sudden you hear the dirt bike come in. You're like, okay, here they come. and so what was your experience? Was that what you expected? You kind of
Yeah. I knew all about how the race layout was going to be, and that's actually how I met you. It was kind of in between the pros and when I had finished the race, and I just kind of, being that I was only by myself there, I was able to kind of walk the campus, just soak it all in, and I knew that they were going to be coming through soon because you can see it on the jumbotron, which was really cool. Like however big that thing is, like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I went over to Woodchip Hill and, you know, I watched them come through the wooded area, and then they're coming up the big hill, and highly impressed how they made it look like not really a hill.
They made it look flat for sure. That was cool how that single track came up behind Woodchip, so you got a chance to see both. I don't remember having that before. Either icebreaker or Woodchip. Whatever we go, I don't remember being able to see two spots where you're like 2 feet away, or so that was pretty cool.
To be honest, I didn't know anything about that. So what I learned on the trail, at one point I was right near the end, and somebody said, "Get over to the left. There's a pro rider coming through," and I was like, "Okay," or over to the right. So I got over, and I was a little confused because then after I ended, the motorcycles came through. So were there pro riders before that or not?
No.
You know why he would have said there was a pro rider coming through? Somebody said that?
To you?
To me, while I was on the trail.
Okay. Was
And-
it Paul?
He's messing with me. He's like, he's gonna think the pro's right next to him. Yeah. I don't know. So I was confused. I didn't know that they came later.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually went out for a second lap, you know.
Yeah. Maybe the guy was just warming up. I don't know. But yeah, then we went and my kids got to race that day, and they thought that was amazing. They all got medals and they thought they won something. So it was.
That's cool.
It was slush cup or
Yeah,
the snow
it was
cone?
the slush cup. The slush cup is the shorter one, right?
Snow cone is the tiny one. The slush cup is the 8 mile.
Then it was the snow cone.
Okay.
They all did the snow. It was like a mile, but they loved it, and they were all hyped up, having people cheer them on and stuff like that. So that was a huge highlight.
Hopefully they're hooked. I mean,
Yes, they love it.
Quite the family affair up there doing
Yes.
stuff like that. So
Absolutely.
So for me, I absolutely love watching the pros come through. So for me personally, I on Friday at the expo, I was talking to one of the Trek engineers about my super caliber, and I was kind of just talking, and then I ended up seeing the distance, this guy with the dog, and I was like, "Ooh, that's Alexi." So I was like, "Hey Alexi, can I take a picture with you?" So I ended up taking a picture with him, and then like he had won in 2019, which was so cool, taking a picture with someone that's won it before. And like I told him, best of luck, I hope you win tomorrow. And like it was so cool that next day, he ended up winning. Like I was so happy, like I was like seeing him come up the hill first. I was like, yes. Like I got to take a picture with the pro that just won. That was so cool. It was kind of a fanboy moment, honestly.
I'll tell you what, that is what's really cool too. Is at the expo, those guys are usually walking around. Especially him. He's got the dog. He's very personable, and there's. And I'm actually, even as much as I've been doing it, I'm just starting to learn like the whole, and it's these younger generations too. There's these fast 22, 23-year-old kids coming up, don't even hardly know their names yet. But that's what's cool is I don't think there's hardly any egos out there. Everybody's super cool, and you wouldn't even know that. Usually you can tell because they're about 150 pounds. They're not 220. They're about 150 pounds, but. All those guys are really fun to get a chance to talk to. So, all right, so let's kind of start to wrap it up here a little bit. I guess two-part question. What would you change next year? And what would you give yourself? What advice would you give yourself now that you've been through it? I guess same question really, but what would you change?
Maybe actually get some legitimate training rides in.
Okay.
I rode the Dragon a couple times before the race, but had never been up there before. I didn't know what the terrain would be like, so maybe some actual training rides, maybe actually pre-ride the course if that's an option.
It is.
maybe change the bike setup.
Okay.
Maybe some narrower tires. I had a hip pack on for this race because I kind of overcompensated with energy chews and
Okay.
pickle juice and water.
Sure.
So maybe I don't need as much stuff
Right.
next year.
I did see your tire. You had a meaty tire on there.
Yeah, 27.5 by 2.6.
Wow. Yeah.
So maybe opt for 2.3 or something next
Right.
year.
For high, low rolling resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, and as far as the only thing I can think of is just train more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Train more. You can't go wrong by training more. And for me personally, I think I'd like to work on my flexibility. You know, I'm a middle-aged man. You start getting a little more tense throughout the core, and you know,
Sure.
sometimes after my long rides, I have low back pressure and pain, and
Sure.
work on the flexibility and just stay a little more dialed into it.
I want to go back to Pat 1 minute, and then we're gonna go right back to you. Send this question. What's your time goal next year?
Time
Gotta
goal.
say this down the line.
I guess that the main variable there that can screw that
And
up
it
is
is
the
recorded.
weather.
And it is recorded. So.
Time goal next year. All right, so finish 2 hours 25 minutes this year. I'd like to hit 2 hours 15 minutes.
You got this.
I feel like that's a fair goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're being short on yourself. Okay, back
Yeah.
to
Time wise, I'm hoping for a minute 50 or not minute 50. Be pretty good.
yeah,
that'd be impressive.
You would be the
Ours-
fastest man in Ottawa County.
I think hour 50, maybe 2 hours, but it depends on what they do with the course
Sure,
and
that's always the thing
and the
too.
weather, you know.
Yep.
But I'm hoping, you know, I was in wave 33. Hoping my performance this year bumps me into a little faster wave, so I don't
Sure.
have to spend so much energy passing.
Yep.
Um,
So under 2.
yeah,
Okay, a very great goal.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so the first question, I would definitely train more. So I didn't train enough. I think if next year I'm gonna go up and ride it. I'd like to ride the Dragon, and just road riding is so different than
Oh yeah.
the mountain biking and up the hills and everything. So I would do more of that. And then I'm the opposite of Pat. I did not bring enough food. And I ate eggs and had a granola bar in the morning, and that was it. And then I had a granola bar in my pack. And I got to mile like 23, 22, something like that. And I had cramps in my legs. Like, I mean, I've run a marathon before. I'm in decent shape, but it was the food. Like, I did not plan. And I didn't even eat any bananas. I wasn't thinking of any of that. And so I ended up getting off and walking for a bit, and I couldn't hardly walk because I was cramping so bad. And I got to the end, and I ate like 6 bananas just in a row. I'm like, just give me more bananas.
At the same time.
As fast as I could. And I could not believe it, like, immediately. Like,
Really?
I'm telling you, within minutes, my cramps were gone, and I didn't have any more. And I was like kicking myself because I was like, if I would have had the right food,
Yeah.
it would have been a totally different last 5 miles.
Sure.
So that was disappointing for me, for
Definitely
sure.
got to eat before you're hungry. You know,
Yes.
if you eat when you're hungry, it's too late.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I've
was
heard.
I was too late, and so I would definitely do that. Maybe bring pickle juice or whatever with me.
Sure.
So, yeah.
And then you said your goal time.
Oh, my goal time would be 2 hours 15.
Okay.
Below 2:15. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So for me, I know this would be a little ambitious, but you know, like I actually one of these years want to have a legit training program. I really want to see what I can do. So I don't know what year that's gonna be, but I really want to just commit to all right, I'm gonna ride Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, like with a structured training plan, and I really want to just next year I've got some things I've been thinking about doing. One of those being Margie. But one thing I've kind of noticed is, transitioning from, these longer endurance races to these shorter races, it takes time. It's quite a different effort, So I would like to commit to like a shorter race distance training plan at some point, and then just kind of see what I can do. But you know, realistic goal under 2 hours. That's what I was hoping for this year. You know, I ended up 2:05, so I was a little off the pace. But you know, I know it's achievable for me. But under 2 hours for sure. That's, I mean, last year same thing. I was hoping for under 2. I ended up like 2:08, 2:09. So like I'm kind of, you know, grasping at it and getting close, but like not quite there. Just ending up a little short. But under 2 for sure, and then we'll see what else comes around.
Sure. So I guess for me, like a couple things that I'm gonna change is that I would tell myself, you know, before a couple months leading into it would be the train. Everybody's gonna say training, so like the training part, I didn't do that Thursday. Okay, so that Tuesday ride we do from here, which is a great effort. If you know people want to come out to it, it's a 33-mile gravel bike effort, and I started to get in pretty good shape. That mixed with our Thursday, and then mixed with the Saturday ride or Sunday, whatever. And I started to get in pretty good shape. Well, what happens for me is October hits and rain, you know, and that darn train or wherever it is, like I don't like it. And so I try to ride outside as much as I can, even if it's, you know, crap weather. So I can't let my hard work fall apart 3 weeks before a race. So I kind of did. And I'm going to go back to a heart rate monitor. It just helps me know where my engine's at, because there's been races before where I felt like I was pushing it and I looked down and I know that I had more. So then it's a mental thing, right? So there's a bunch of mental stuff going on. So your mind could be telling you all kinds of things, but looking at the tack, you know, is always a big part for me so I'm going to get back to that. And, you know, I've done once under 2 hours, but that was because of the little shorter course. And then I did the 2:05. I was hoping for the 2:05 this year. Had mental crap, but so I'm gonna go back at least to the 2:05. But always the goal is trying to be under 2. You know, it's kind of a thing that basically everybody here is capable of. I mean, that's you know, it's kind of the goal. So it depends on what you put into it. So in close. You guys got any comments, thoughts, anything that you were thinking of before?
I mean, I had a really good Iceman. You know, like the overall experience, you know, how I felt coming into it. I was super ecstatic, super. You know, I spent some time, you know, taking a nice bath. You know, icing my knees, my legs, making sure I was rested, recovered, and just feeling fresh. You know, wanting to bite at the bit. You know.
Sure.
So.
Yep.
That's important.
Yeah, I think the end coming in and seeing everybody, my family was there, and then John greeted me at the end, and it was just such a fun feel. Then the kids to go and just to hang out in that environment. Even on the way up, I stopped at a gas station to get gas, and people were like, "Hey, Iceman!" And it's just that feel is like so cool to be a part of that, and the kids get that same excitement, you know, and so to share that with them, I think was a real highlight this year.
Good.
Yeah, it was everything that it was hyped up to be.
Good.
And probably like anybody, we've all watched the YouTube videos, the GoPros, and it was kind of surreal. Like I was in the GoPro now. Like I was living this. Like I've been watching it for so long. It's like this is real. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And I felt great doing it. And it was just when you come in the end, I mean, that many people and just seeing the ending.
Sure.
Was awesome.
Any closing thoughts?
Yeah. I don't come from an XC or a racing background, or I'm not a competitive rider, and especially not much of a social rider, no group rides or anything like that. So this was a very far out of my comfort zone event, but it was also the most fun that I've had on the bike in a long time. So it took a lot of convincing to actually sign up, but if I can do it, I think it's worth trying at least.
Yeah.
It was a lot more fun than I anticipated. the nerves weren't as bad when you're out there and you hear people cheering you on.
Yep.
It's it even got a bit competitive out there, and it was kind of fun in that aspect. So try it. It's worth trying. If anything, the experience afterwards, seeing the crowd get hyped, and that's worth it alone.
Sure. You just remind me, and that not to bring up like a semi-negative thing, but I've heard people say that the price, you know, it is expensive, but for what you get out of it and everything, it is not expensive in my mind. You know, I mean, it's totally, if the price is holding you off, don't let that hold you off, because it's going to exceed your expectation, you know, and the memories that it's going to create. So I guess ask some questions down below. If you guys got any questions, these guys will be chiming in and looking to see if you got any questions for us. But hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was semi-entertaining. And and we're looking forward to keeping you guys informed on all kinds of other different stuff out there. Thanks for tuning in. Boom!
I like it.
What do you guys think? Is that good? How long did we go?
52.
See?
We could add a couple more.
Hey, we can keep going.
Did anyone
Done this before.
B-roll of us fumbling with the mics.
Right. Hey folks, Mark Deering here from the Adventure Channel. Just wanted to formally introduce myself in case you haven't seen me without the helmet on and the full kit. Amy and I, my wife, are adventurers. We are loving what we're doing and meeting the community and doing all kinds of fun things. My day job, my real job is real estate. So I just wanted to let you guys know that if you have any real estate questions, if you're looking to move near the trails, if you're looking to move out of state, any of those types of things, we help hundreds of different mountain biking and adventure families find their base camp to live at. So we want to do the same with you. We couldn't do this without you guys, and we love working with folks that have the same passion as us.